Tokyo Marathon 2025 completed, a little late, but here is the Jack Runs race recap for it.
Keep going! Go, go! Almost there, almost there! なんかね、フィニッシュ、今年はまたさらに太陽光線が今、
Without further ado, let's get into the race recap. Now, with the Tokyo Marathon, the course actually starts on a relatively downhill stretch for the first 5 through to 7 kilometers. I honestly, lining up in wave 1, was expecting it to be quite congested from the get-go. However, I didn't really experience that. Obviously, there were lots of runners around me too, and the first couple of corners were like bumping shoulders to shoulder with other runners out there, but nothing to the point where I actually couldn't find my stride or get into my pace, really. The first 10 kilometers for me was about conserving as much energy as possible, deciding to stick to a pace that felt relatively easily, noting that this was a little difficult to manage with the minor inclines and declines in that first 10 kilometers. Aside from finishing the marathon, the most notable experience actually came 4 kilometers into the race, where I was running along just past one of the first aid stations there, and suddenly there was a runner in front of me who actually stood on an energy gel packet there. Somehow the energy gel, when it was stepped on, actually shot out and got me right down the side of my face, all over my hat, and even my Tokyo Marathon bib is covered in gel essentially too. So threw me off quite a bit actually to start off, but I had to recompose myself. A few of the runners around me were like, oh shit, I'm glad that didn't happen to me. But yeah, I was very sticky. The GoPro was very sticky for a remainder of the race. The aid stations on the course were set up every 5 kilometers or so. They had Pocari Sweat as the electrolyte drink option first up, as well as water, probably about another 200 meters downwards as well. So it was enough time to get 1 Pocari into me before grabbing 2 cups usually at each of the aid stations. The cool thing when it came to the Tokyo Marathon is the last number of my bib was actually the aid station table that I had to pick up my water from. Obviously, no one was forcing us to pick up at that particular aid station. However, it was to try to avoid the congestion too. What I found, though, in my experience was runners weren't quite adhering to that mantra, or I guess that requirement that the Tokyo Marathon organizers wanted of runners, but yeah, it really didn't get to a point where I was affected by that. Getting to about 40 minutes in was when I had my first gel, and it also had my first salt tablet taped down with a bit of strapping tape to the back of it. As I was finishing the gel, was slowly trying to unravel the salt tab from the strapping tape itself, but with it being one of those kind of medical pill capsules, somehow the strapping tape stuck a little too well to the tablet and as I went to pull it off, it all just spilt out over myself again too. So was really not enjoying the first 10 kilometers in the marathon here. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to try bothering opening the other salt tablets that I taped down to 2 or 3 of my other gels. Having Pocari Sweat available on course, I was like, okay, that can be my sodium requirements done and dusted for the race. 10 kilometers through to the half marathon distance was also quite fast for me, averaging between 4 minutes 10 through to 4 minutes 30 per kilometer. So well and truly under the 3.5 hour pace for the first half marathon, coming in at a time, just reading here now, at 1 hour 35 minutes flat. From the half marathon through to the 30-kilometer mark, I actually managed to find the 3 hour 10 pace marker group 2, which was a relatively big size, not as big as what you would see where they kind of covered the entire length or the width of the course, sorry, but enough for me to have enough room to sneak in and just be comfortable there and not have to worry too much about keeping to a certain pace zone when I could see the flag markers for the 310 well and truly within grasp, and just decided to stick with them for up until 30 kilometers really. At this point in the race, I felt mentally and physically great, only really suffering from a bit of a scare with consuming my second and third energy gels where they didn't quite want to sit down and almost wanted to throw them up, but just kept strong and continued on pushing through. As with marathons typically, 30 kilometers onwards was where I really had to dig deep and push myself. Firstly, finding my fourth gel after taking it, my stomach just felt very full, and I'm not too sure if it was using the high five gels this time that are quite liquid based in comparison to the SIS gels that I was also pairing them with. My stomach then and there just really didn't want to take anything on. I remember going to the next aid station to have a sip of Pocari, and I couldn't even finish a quarter of the cup. My body was just telling me like I can't do any more nutrition there. I too noticed that the 3 hour 10 pacer group slowly started to draw further away in the distance, and it was here where I reminded myself that I'm running against myself, not here to suddenly Boston qualify and suddenly go a sub 1 hour 30 half marathon for the second part. Just wanted to keep myself focused, and again, using the mantra, this will pass, I am strong, which really did help stop any thoughts or doubts from clouding my mind too much. About the 38-kilometer mark was where I really physically hit the wall too, finding myself really having to dig deep, but also being a little disheartened as obviously with Tokyo having the hairpin turns, passing what was the 41-kilometer check marker, but having probably another 4 kilometers to go before even getting to it. I pushed through the final kilometer, finishing strong in a time of 3 hours, 12 minutes, and 10 seconds. So for those of you who tried to guess my marathon time, I feel like some of you actually did get pretty close. And for those of you that are interested in the numbers, here's a snapshot at each individual lap over the course of the marathon. Really didn't find my Garmin watch really be affected in terms of the buildings or having my splits look a little off. Overall, it felt pretty much the same. I feel like there was only 2 where I really thought about, I feel like I was running faster, but yeah, going through, as I said, 1 through to 10Ks, really keeping that 410 to 420 kind of pace before starting to find my rhythm around the 420s through to 440s even up until the first half marathon, obviously hitting that at 1 hour 35 minutes. We pushed through down from 20 through to 30Ks was when I really started to feel like I was running at marathon effort again, so managing pretty much well under 430s, which was really surprising to see. Again, 30 through to the marathon completion was where that battle started to really creep in. 33Ks there, dropping to 523, which was the slowest split out of them all too. So, but managing to pick it up relatively well towards the end of the marathon and coming home in the final K in 4 minutes 46 seconds per kilometer there. So after completing the Tokyo Marathon, my fourth one being another PB under the belt, here are some things that actually worked really well for me. Firstly, I managed to nail my carb loading the 3 days prior to the marathon. On the Thursday, it did take me a little later into the day to start really ramping up, getting some carbs into me, finding I was eating a lot of onigiri, sushi, and even smoothies this year. Found Picari obviously was there to top up my electrolyte stores and get a few carbs in, but the smoothies were the game changer for me, finding I was able to get down probably a good 2 or 3 a day to hit almost 800 grams of carbs on the Friday as well as the Saturday before race day. Another factor that worked really well for me with this marathon was actually staying closer to the finishing line. So Tokyo Marathon is a point-to-point course, and it only took me about 25 minutes to get to the starting village via public transport there. I had to catch 2 different subways to get out right onto Shinjuku Station, and the starting village was literally a 200-300 meter walk to get there. The reason that I decided to stay closer to the finishing line compared to the starting line was I really didn't want to be in a position where I'd have to jump on a subway again to get back to my hotel. The nice walk, although where I stayed I had to actually cross the marathon course, so I actually had to go under the subway to get past it, was a great way to almost recover in a way too. This was also the first marathon where I felt physically and mentally strong, pushing quite uncomfortably for the marathon distance. It only really got hard in those final 5 kilometers where, again, as you would expect, my legs weren't ticking over and my pace was nearing the 4-minute 50 through to the 5:10 kind of pace as well. So really just dug deep and wanted to get myself home. My foot, after experiencing some plantar fasciitis towards the peak period as well as going into the taper, actually held up really well for the marathon using some off-brand KT tape that I found at one of the convenience stores to tape my foot up, which really did support in that regard. I only found a few blisters underneath the foot where the strapping tape obviously rubbed for the 42 kilometers, but that wasn't too detracting from being able to keep quite a solid pace. Lastly was I had quite an uninterrupted marathon in terms of the path ahead of me. I felt the entire time I had quite a lot of space. The only real times that I felt like I got caught up was at the aid stations, which is super common in marathons as well. Like, yeah, once I got past the aid stations, it again just opened up and flowed so well for me. I also think back to what I could have improved on when it came to Tokyo Marathon, and one of the big key things was nutrition, mainly in regards to my race nutrition there. Although I was consuming Picari at almost every aid station that it was offered, 4 gels obviously did impact my endurance, but also my energy levels in that final 5 kilometers. So I feel like if I was able to consume the 5th and 6th gel, may have had a bit more of a stronger finishing position and even physically felt a bit stronger to push a little deeper. And in general, thinking about my nutrition both going into the race but also at the race, I really haven't been eating the best, and I feel like it's falling into bad habits where I'm craving energy drinks, packets of chips, a ton of chocolate, and all this junk food which isn't providing my body with the adequate fuel it needs to recover and be able to perform at its best too. I feel like that's another key part to this marathon journey that I'm continuing to learn from and trying to, I guess, fix in a way. Doesn't help, obviously, with this video coming out way after the Tokyo Marathon was, having to move interstate and relying on our stuff arriving on time, but having that delayed by a week, suddenly eating just takeout almost every single evening and only really getting to cook a home-cooked meal maybe once out of the 2 weeks during the move straight after Tokyo. And I'll be honest, those are really the only 2 main improvements, which essentially are 1, I guess, that I could think of, because I executed the plan pretty perfectly in terms of sticking to a majority of my training besides some of my gym sessions in the later parts of the marathon with everything going on. And yeah, how could I not be unhappy with another almost 20-minute PB and really starting to believe a sub 3-hour marathon and even a Boston qualifier marathon with the 2-hour 55 mark as the setting standard for my age group really being possible. In terms of what's next, I really hoped that I'd been selected via the lottery for the Berlin Marathon, but at this point in time, really don't have any ideas on what my next marathon will be in this regard. But obviously not wanting to lose such a big increase in fitness that I've had after completing my Tokyo block for it to go to waste too as well. So I feel like this next period or this next short while will be focused on just maintaining base mileage, but also probably getting a bit more time into the gym to develop my strength, as well as getting my foot back into gear, as well as building up my speed to hold distances or that kind of pace for longer distances. To summarize where I feel like I'm at in this quest to go for a Boston qualifier marathon, I believe the two key pieces that will really shift the needle are one, my nutrition, making sure I can nail that to sustain my energy levels for the full 42 kilometers, and two, adding more tempo runs at marathon effort and even long runs with marathon efforts within them too. I feel like that was really the only key, or those are the two key missing pieces that will allow me to go even faster as well. And understanding that it is going to be even more of a mental battle now for me to go faster in my future races. So there we have it, friends, my Tokyo Marathon race recap. And I'm sorry that it took me quite a while to get this out to you. Obviously, having all of my YouTube set up and not the best background at the moment in the truck did cause a bit more of a delay in getting this video out to you all. Hope that everything is well over on your side of the screen. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.